Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from, or if you are catching us on replay. This is the Awesome Journey, and I am your host, Kelle 𝒘𝒆𝒏𝒆𝒚, along with my co-host in care, Christy Howard. And we're just two girls that connected on LinkedIn 15 years ago, live on opposite sides of the country, have giving hearts, of passion for paying it forward. And I may have prayed to be living louder in my purpose. And now here we sit in front of microphones, bringing you the Awesome Journey. And as many of you know, for those of you that are new here, one of our primary goals is to highlight incredible individuals to share their unique stories and challenges because, hey, we all need a reminder that we are united in our personal journeys. And really, just to cut to the chase, particularly for today, Christy and I, when we started this, really just were like, hey, we want to put some motivation, inspiration, and hope out into the world for an hour a week and help as many people as possible through storytelling of others, their challenges, obviously, and experiences, turning their pain into passion, pain into purpose, etc. And also job seekers and recruiters. And those of you who have been around with us for a while have seen that in the past. And this just really worked out great for today because our guest today is Autumn Brennan, who is a people-focused marketing and communications leader. She's worked B2B and SaaS in multiple industries from FinTech to healthcare and many others. She's also very focused on mental health and is a corporate culture geek like myself. And this is going to be a great conversation as we are in the US. This is Thanksgiving week, this Thursday. And, so the beginning of the holiday season, which for a lot of folks in and of itself is an issue on mental health because it can be a season of, exacerbated loneliness. And that with the job market, job seeking, people being out of work for so much longer, we thought this is perfect timing to talk about this. So before we get into that today, I will turn it over to my co-host in care, Christy Howard.
Really bad lighting here. But anyway, you guys know me. I know Autumn because we used to work together. We just clicked. We're both holistic. We're both about mental health, advocating, and just happiness, And right now, there's not a lot of happiness around because of the job seekers issues, the discrimination. We all know how I get on that soapbox about ageism, and especially with the executives with ageism. I have a huge soapbox screaming off of that one. Yeah. And that's why I have two that, understand it. They've been there. And I've been fortunate because of what I've done. I don't get really hit with that yet. But we wanted to bring Autumn in because of her experience. She has her own agency. She also, she has done so much. Plus she coaches. And she is somebody I feel is very transparent and authentic. And since my brand is authentic, that's how I go. But a company that wants to be true to what they preach, diversity, inclusion, healthcare, mental health, this is the type of person, both she and Kelle are the type of executives with their passion, are people that need to be in these companies. Because I talk to job seekers daily, sometimes five people a day. And what's happening is that companies are preaching it, but they're not practicing it.
Amen.
And so when people, after they go through the hoop of interviews, that's another story, they get into a company and they realize it's not what they truly communicated. So having the communication and marketing person who has the passion of the diversity and inclusion and understanding the mental health is what companies need.
Amen.
So it's all you two ladies, because this is your forum, this is your passion, and this is what you all do. I'm not an executive. I'm just an executive assistant. Not anymore, but you know what I mean. You guys are executives. So go for it, Autumn.
Well, I will stop you right here. not just an executive.
Amen, sister.
You know that I on every level, and I have seen you lead many CEOs, many CMOs, and people like me who really need that attention to detail and those boots on the ground who are so focused on the logistics of an event, you know, because our minds are spinning on something else. So you've done every level, and I've seen you do it every single day. So I want to for that this Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And I'm thankful for both of you all.
Ditto.
Level me out.
So one thing I'd like to talk about right away when we think about culture and executives and mental health and leading on every level is that it's up to us to really destigmatize mental health issues. You know, and issues can be transient. We can have a struggle right now because something's going on in our lives, or we can have something that's a little more ongoing that needs a little support in our workplace and beyond. And so I think it takes everyone in an organization to really work towards destigmatizing it, changing our language around it, and making it scary to ask for help. You know, it's on all of us to create psychological and emotional safe spaces in our workplace and in our homes. And in order to do that, we have to live by example, and that of sharing our lived experience of, hey, you know what, I struggled with panic attacks too. Here's a brief that worked for me, and just really owning your stuff. You know? Like take the stuffy out and own your stuff.
Yes,
and
so true.
And for everyone to speak their truth and to get the support they need without feeling ashamed.
Yeah. And I think as a leader, one of the things that really stands out to me with what you just said, Autumn, is it is your responsibility as a leader. I always had my finger on the pulse of my team. I paid attention when they came into the office in the morning, how they interacted, because, you know, people are people, we're creatures of habit. You figure out, and you can, it's so obvious when you actively observe and listen to your team, is telling when someone comes in and it's like, she seems a little off today.
Yes.
And I would just send a message and be like, hey, when you have a minute, come on over to my office and ask, you know, hey, you just seem a little off today. You know, is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because it is that whole thing of safe space and not saying what's wrong with you. Like the words matter of how you choose. Now, generally, whenever I did say, you know, how can I help you or what can I do to support you? They would generally end up telling me what was going on if they chose to. And generally they always did. And then just being aware of that. I did have a staffer at one time who she did suffer from panic and anxiety attacks and was going through a very rough time. Her mom was in a severely domestic violence relationship. I mean, horrific. And she had a panic attack at the office, and she went into another part of the building and was in a room, and someone told me like, hey, I just saw her go over there. She was crying. She was really struggling to breathe. And I went over and I could hear her crying through the door. And I just, you know, knocked on and talking to herself a bit. And when she let me in, then she started to even have a bigger panic attack because now, holy shit, I'm breaking down in front of my boss. But it was a weird thing for me because when things get high crisis, I go into like way Zen mode. Sure. Of neutrality. And I look back and I'm like, God, how did I keep my shit together? But it's because those are the moments that I'm like, God, please guide me what I'm supposed to do here. And just helping her, you know, calm down, you know, hey, let's just sit down, look at me, let's breathe, and breathe through it. And, you know, afterwards she was a little embarrassed. And I said, you have zero to be embarrassed about. I'd probably do the same thing if I was going through what you're going through. You know, you're fine. But that's just being, I think, an accepting human and being from an empathetic and compassionate place, because people who come to work, you spend more time with your work people than you do people at home. I mean, for generally
speaking. And they tend to forget that we have personal shit going on.
Yes. And
so when we go to work, we're sort of trying to escape it.
That's
and then let's say we have a toxic environment, all the crap sort of blows up.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, okay, what do I do? I mean, I need that job.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, you know, kind of to spin this into a little bit of a different direction, and I want your thoughts on this, Autumn, is we've talked about this on other shows too, is as humans, when someone we care about, someone we work with, someone we love, asks us for help, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like we can't be quick enough to say, oh my gosh, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? But we suck at asking for help. So in the office place, because of the embarrassment, humiliation, you're not a part of my family. You are my superior. I always said I'm part of the team. My title does not define me. Yes, we need a leader to steer the ship, but it takes all of us.
But
And
that's where the servant leader comes in.
yes,
That's the servant leadership.
how, what are your thoughts on how people would ask for help within the workplace? Because that is kind of a scary thing to do.
Absolutely. It can be terrifying. And in a lot of situations, it's not a psychologically safe environment. And so it's really hard. Like, ooh, if I bring this up, is this going to affect my career?
Yeah.
And a lot in healthcare, specifically with physicians, and over COVID, they were reaching burnout and they were frustrated. And we have examples like Lorna Breen, who unfortunately did not get the support she needed and ended her life. And that is happening all over the place. If I was a physician and said, hey, I'm really struggling with depression right now, that can send a red flag. My insurance can go up because of that. My employer is going to be involved. A lot of things are going to happen if I raise my hand for help. And so I think as leaders, it's important for us to do those check-ins, like you mentioned. One thing I start with, oftentimes, if you have a direct report who is just not quite there, like something's up. I don't know. I'll start by asking, how's your workload? Do you want to delegate anything? Are you struggling with a project that I can help you with? And then I ask the following question: how's your life load?
Mm-hmm.
You have a sick kid? Oh my gosh, yes, let's talk about that. Just so we can get the big stuff out of the way, because it's so hard to do linear reality, deadline-driven work when emotionally hijacked with managing a crisis. And that's give caregivers some time and energy to vent. And we need to make sure that they've got some support around them, whether it's, maybe get HelloFresh, maybe get some meals delivered, maybe, outsource laundry, outsource some things that are just too much right now. And it's so set those healthy boundaries of like, yes, I can manage this project, but I really can't do this right now. It's just too much. And I think just having those one-on-one conversations and booking regular ones, like, hey, let's meet every Fridays are loosey-goosey. We can kind of go over what we did this week, strategize for next week, and I want to hear about your weekend plans. So make sure that you're involving your own element in that, and also sharing of yourself. You can't just ask people for all their deep, dark secrets and divulge some of your past experiences or current lived reality if you're experiencing things.
What I'm seeing is with the mental health, I mean, yes, as I said, a lot of companies sing the song, but they don't really, dance to it. But the job seekers who felt, who were loyal to companies, and then, as I just pretty much say, gets kicked to the curb, they now have the mental health of dealing with their home life, what the business did, the company did to them, and now looking for a job. So so having that and trying to balance it of all that negativity, but especially for, executives, and I have CEOs and COOs and, vice presidents, you all directors. When applying for jobs, you look at the job description and you're like, I can do this. I got everything. I've done my research. This is a job. This is a company that I can bring in so much for this company. However, the ageism comes into play. I have witnessed that companies are wanting younger people to come in because they're hip, they know all the technology, but they tend to forget that we're hip. We know technology and we like to work. We love to work. We love to mentor. We like to bring our experience in to mentor and show the real world over the little glass bubble that so many work with. Tell me about the two of you, the issues that you have, come about? I mean, this has been going on since COVID, in and out for both of you all, of understanding the interviewing, and, doing these projects and not getting the job. And then months later, you see your job up on a billboard. Understanding that, because as I said, there's a lot of people out there that are feeling with this ageism. You can't prove it. However, you know what you know. We all have an intuition. So what do you guys say about that?
You can go first, Autumn, on this one.
Okay. So being in tech, I don't have the luxury of taking a pause and just going through the motions of doing my job. I have to have my finger on the pulse of every piece of technology and innovation that comes my way. So whether that's learning a new piece of marketing technology for doing my job, or it's understanding the broader market of machine learning and AI, I've been working with that from day one. One of my favorite things to do, though, is with these millennials who everyone is complaining is taking our jobs, is I like to put in perspective when I'm leading millennials and say things like, back in my day, and voice for that. Absolutely. Now that I'm 50, I'm allowed to use a grandma voice, right?
That's awesome.
But really tell them about, give them a holistic view of how marketing has changed over the years. Back in my day, we would spend thousands of dollars on a 1-800 number and put it and mail it to someone's address, and they would pick up this postcard and read it right over their garbage. Now we are also tuned into the marketing technology that's out there, and we understand that customer decision journey so much more. And we come with receipts. We have the metrics and the data. So cool. So nowadays, I just absolutely love where marketing is going. I absolutely love the ability to test and measure without having such great risks to the organization and the bottom line. So I can say, hey, let's do a weird TikTok and see what happens. And
you love your TikToks. Because it works.
It works. It's silly. It's fun. It definitely brings some levity to the organization. Christy, I used to do them for internal communications to bring a little fun and bump into players. Yeah. But I think I enjoy working with millennials tremendously. And I'm here to not only promote that level of transparency and really putting it on leaders to seek mentors for themselves, but also seek mentees. It's about building a community of curious minds, and that's how we develop innovation. Yeah. So I don't know if I've directly been impacted by age discrimination. I'm not quite sure, because I am in tech and I can speak the language and I do walk the walk in that sense. But I know, according to, for instance, AARP, over 61% of people have said this has happened on the job. They've done tons of studies and tons of research, and people are experiencing it. I think a lot of it depends too on your brand presence. I tend to present young because I'm tattooed and I'm silly and I've got way too much energy. So maybe that throws it off. But on paper, if you put something like 20 years experience, people might say, don't do that. And I've had some executive coaches say, maybe back off of that. And I'm like, I won't, because
no, you shouldn't, because that's dumbing down your experience.
I'm not here to dilute myself or to play small. I'm here to leverage all the jobs I've had, all the wild corporate structures, from cooperative to nonprofit to, Fortune 50 companies. All of that is incredibly valuable. So whether you're 5 years old and have only worked for one company, or you're 50 years old and only worked for one company, they still have valid experience. What I love about marketing and communications is that you can do so much within those spaces, whether it's an enterprise role or a departmental, more siloed role. You can play with it. And I think that's the fun part for me, is just always keeping it light.
Right. Yeah. Light and fresh.
Just never dulling down my curiosity, and just constantly thinking, what do I need to learn next to make this way better? And I just love that. I can't believe I stumbled upon marketing communications out of coming from healthcare. And I'm just so happy and grateful every day I get to do what I love and have a sense of purpose.
That's awesome. And the whole part of, my spin now on ageism and how that impacts in so many different ways. I agree with you. And I the same is, like, when you look at someone on paper, and this is part of the problem. because you generally, and I won't say always, no absolutes here, that the people who are looking at resumes are people who are not qualified to be looking at resumes. And
Right.
so
They
in
don't
their
know what
mind,
the job is. They've never worked in that job.
right, and they're discounting it. And so that's problem one. Problem two, when people do think like, oh, this person is older, but like you said, it's like, and because I've always said, you know what, get me in front of someone and I will get the job.
Yeah.
And because it's about the person. And I do want to kind of go on what you said. If to be relevant in the marketing space anywhere, whatever the industry is, and I did a lot of this in 2020, but always did this beforehand. I was always taking courses, outside of work, whether it was to learn, because I needed to know enough about all the different platforms and tools that we used within our organization so that I could manage it properly, because you generally have to manage up in marketing. I usually don't care what level you're at, but particularly when you're a marketing leader, you have got to manage up for the reason of they don't understand and people minimize what they don't know. Well, why could it take so long to do this quarterly update to
Right.
all the PowerPoints? But when you can explain it and back it up to the person, but it also helps you with your team be able to allocate correctly and set the expectation correctly. Which is why I tell people, don't go into an organization and thinking like, I've got a college degree, so I should be in management. No, you shouldn't. You need to learn and move your way up. And now to swing back to ageism a bit, and I do see this a lot, and I've seen some pretty great memes because I've been doing more posting about it of late, because I think it's important for people to know, hey, it's not you, it is a thing. But one of the memes was something to the effect of, we're looking for someone between 24 and 27 with 30 years of experience. And I was like, man, that is so true.
Yep.
Because there's definitely what you get out of someone who's experienced is a quicker process. Yes, you can get someone who's younger for a less salary, likely, but how are you really making that up in the difference? Because now you've got a learning curve involved. They haven't done these things. They're learning on the fly or, being
You're
trained.
having to train them.
So it's slowing up the process. Whereas if you've got someone who is seasoned, you will get there much faster because they've already done it and they know what the process is. And I say this from experience because there was a period of time where, and this is why 2020 hurt me personally so bad. I was being poached all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but pretty regularly. People would reach out to have me work for them. And I did do a little bit of jumping to get different experience, because when you're taking, hey, I know how to run a Marcom for broker-dealer communications, well, drop me into some place and then build it because I've already done it, so I know what works. It happens a whole lot faster if you take all these people in a startup and have them try to do it. But then being laid off for the first time in 2020, it was devastating, not just for being laid off. I had just moved into a place by myself, being isolated. I mean, we all know the other stuff, but not being able to get hired, and that had never happened in my life. I was like, I always got the job I wanted, and that was it. And so to not be able to get in, but 2020, of course, was special in the sense of so many organizations were saying, well, I don't know that we should hire a marketing executive right now, because marketing is usually the first place to get cut, which is just
Right.
the nature of the beast. And it shouldn't be people.
And executive assistants, because
Yes.
you guys
Yes.
will be able to do whatever.
Where can we cut what they would think is the easiest way to cut expenses, but not being able to get hired. And this goes now into the mental health also, because people are being out of work for so much longer. And being older and being in a position where I've never been out of work, and I know this applies to so many people, of what that then does to you. Because it's like, holy shit, first of all, I didn't realize how much I defined who I am based off of what I've accomplished. So that spurred into a whole different part of depression, because I wasn't able to fulfill what I thought was me. Like, I am this position or this job because I proved, I busted my ass through my career to get to this what I thought was going to be the end all, I'm made director, I'm an executive director, and who doesn't want that? But when I got there, I was like, this sort of sucks. Because happiness isn't a destination, and somehow that was it. But it was also part of, introspection at that time for me to say, like, holy crap, like I've been spending my career focused on proving my unconscious story of me not being good enough wrong. And so
all relate to that one in this little chat here.
Yes. And so I think now, and this is why I thought it was so important for the holidays with people being out of work. And yes, we're always cheerleaders and positive thinking, but when you're in that place of feeling like shit and depressed and all the things, and you get another rejection, and then the good old line for ageism is that, well, we'll think you're going to be bored. Because I do always follow up if I've gotten a rejection and say, hey, what could I have done differently? Or who was the candidate and why did you choose them? You should always ask for feedback. And of course, there was one in particular that hurt because I was perfect for it. And it was like I had experience in it because it was very similar to what I had been doing. And a person who was half my age got the job and had hardly any experience. And I thought, that was the dumbest hire. And I shouldn't say that because I don't really know, but for the position, but it hurts us personally. And we've talked about this too, and then I'll toss it back over, is remembering that it's not personal, but it's hard when you feel that deep depression or you're not feeling good enough. It's hard not to take it personally because no organization or business owner is going into the conference room and going, man, how can we crush Kelly's soul today? Like, what can we do? Or anybody else for that matter. They're not doing it, but it's hard. And now with the holidays, it's another variable of what impacts our mental health. And I just think people need to talk about it more, because hearing about it, because I may not say anything because I might be embarrassed to say to someone, I'm depressed. Or when you say I'm depressed to someone, and I've had this happen, like, oh, Kelly, you can't be depressed. Like you're always so chipper or whatever. And it's like, no, I really get depressed sometimes, and it's rough. So
what pisses me off, because I've seen this, where they make the assumption that you're going to be bored.
Yes.
You're overqualified.
Oh,
you're going to leave, and you're going to want more money. Have the freaking conversation first before you make an assumption, because what's that saying? You make an assumption ass out of you, whatever. Yeah, something like that. Because if I'm applying, it's because I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm qualified, and I know what I can bring to the table to make your company successful from my overqualification. And I'm old, and I like to work, because old people, now we've got some 50s and we got a 60 plus here. We like to work, so we're not sitting over here eating bonbons going, oh, we're just going to go into a company and then we're going to get bored and leave and blah, blah, blah. That's a waste of our time. Oh, and then the waste of our time is putting in the flipping applications and going through the interview. Come on. It's in the mentality. It's like, be common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to toss this right over to you, Autumn, but I wanted to make this one point about the whole, being bored or you're going to leave when you find something else. Again, have a conversation with people first, because here's another thing that I have noticed. And I am this person too. I don't want to be necessarily a CMO anymore. Like I don't want to be on call 24/7, working on the weekends, or, those sorts of things. Maybe I do want to step down to a lower position because I want to go to work and I want to be done and go home. I don't
want to mentor people.
Right. I don't want that responsibility in that realm anymore. And that's where I think organizations are really missing out, because I know a lot of people for that same reason. They're like, I've gotten there, but you know what? Now I don't want to be back in that role, because now I've gotten some
my husband.
a little bit of freedom with being able to work from home, create my own schedule. And now my priorities in life have changed. And I'm like, man, I just feel like they're missing a huge boat of the amount of wisdom that they could get in having conversations. And it's just not the same. I know when I used to hire back in the day, I've interviewed hundreds of people. We would have those conversations. Oh, this is a role that's way beneath what they want. They're going to be bored. And we would move on to the next. But that was a different market, different time. Today's market is way different. So anyways, those are my thoughts now.
It's I'll give it to you, Autumn, but it's oversaturated with older people now.
Yeah.
Because these companies, people have worked for companies for 30 plus years. They were loyal to the companies, and then boom, you're gone. Well, I'm sorry, I haven't interviewed in 30 years. It's not the same thing where you just write out the application, you hand it in, and boom, you've got a handshake. Right. So that's the whole thing that's, frustrating.
Yeah.
What do you say, Autumn? Sorry.
Well, I would say not even 30 years. Within the last 5 years, interviewing and applicant tracking systems and the whole process of hiring has changed tremendously.
Yeah.
One big belief that I have is that I hire for culture and train for skill.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Please don't hire me. Please don't hire me if I'm not a culture fit, because I don't want to be uncomfortable with my presence, me or you.
Right.
I do the research ahead of time to say, is this a good culture fit for me? And sometimes I don't know. You don't know until you're in. But what I over my years is that I do much, much better when I have a team to lead versus individual contributor. Yes, I love those roles. I love being a consultant type to the C-suite. That's super fun for me. But I think for my own way to leverage my own talent and passion, it's leading other people and developing other people. And so asking that question, how can I help you grow?
Yeah.
Brain. Have Pick My Brain Fridays where you can ask any question, nothing's and we can just have fun with it. But I think in those spaces, when we are knowing what is true for ourselves, knowing what we want for ourselves, and we've clearly defined what is meaningful to our work, we're going to choose jobs differently. We're going to choose organizations much more intentionally because we want to, we deserve happiness. And happiness is a beautiful thing for productivity. I would not
Amen.
Of unhappy people. You increase funds 10%, productivity goes up by 30. That's not my stat. That's just life. That's how it is. And I think that's a really big piece that is another part of culture enrichment that is the responsibility of every leader is, to bring the levity up, to check in with people, to make sure it's the fit, the right job, all of that stuff. I've been in nonprofits in my past, and I recognize that it's very much a scarcity mindset in a nonprofit. Most nonprofits operate in that scarcity mindset. And that's not a good fit for my brain. I'm a growth mindset queen. And I want to operate on that. Oh my God, we're running out of money. That it's reality. I get it. That's okay. But to have that fear factor be constantly running in the back of your brain, I don't think creativity is inspired when you're in fight or flight. It's impossible.
No. Right.
So I want to be in an environment where everyone's got this. Yeah, we're in go-to-market zone right now, and our go-to-market strategy is beautiful. And right now things are a little slender, but they will get there on the other side of this. We just have to keep putting one foot in front of each other and take the right actions and constantly do the right thing and grow each other.
Amen. And the interesting part about culture, because it fascinates me for so many reasons, just human behavior in general, which is why I loved interviewing people. Because I'm into body language and it's a blast. But I would say to people, because a lot of the organizations that I worked with were startups. Startup environment is not for everyone. And you could tell when there was someone that it's like, this place is going to eat you alive. And be like, and I would let them know, hey, you should, not everybody's right for the culture. Of course, I worded it much better than this. But kind of letting them know it's okay for you not to take a job because it's not a culture fit. Because I agree with you. I have hired, some of my greatest hires were people that didn't match the skill set. Because you can train anyone, but it is about how you fit. Because if you don't fit in the environment, you're not gonna grow. And it's just a fact. You will actually diminish. And I've seen it happen, throughout my career. In several organizations, because you're like, that person should never have been hired, and you watch them diminish, which for leadership, one of the things that I've always said is when people get quiet, you need to be concerned. Like when they've gotten quiet, you haven't been paying attention because they didn't go quiet overnight. This was a process. So those are my thoughts right at the moment. And I will volley it back over to you, Autumn.
I love what you said. I love what you said about when people start to get quiet. And I think as leaders, my grandfather gave me this piece of advice. God made you with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk. And for someone who likes to talk a lot, I really have learned to listen a lot more. But like you said, Kelly, sometimes it's really looking at that body language and what they're saying, what they're not saying. And I think it can be more challenging in a remote environment or where you only get to see this much of me and don't realize I'm 6'4". I'm not, but I don't know until we know. And so I think it inspires us to work a little harder in a remote environment, to do little coffee talk check-ins and things like that, and make new rituals and new meetings for checking in a way that's much more casual and comfortable, but it's always going to be productive.
Yeah. And I used to even say this in corporate America. One of the things, being in the marketing space, because you're working with the creatives, is we would have meetings where we would go on a walk. We would either go walk downstairs, get a coffee, go sit outside, particularly this time of year because it's so amazing here.
She's in Minnesota. I don't know if she's going to say that.
She's in Arizona. But in any event, because the change of environment for one, and two, when you're walking and moving, of course, you're feeding your brain. And it does change the creativity, and it does shift creativity and offers creativity and offering a safe space. Yes. I was huge on every morning I had a stand-up meeting, but I didn't do it like at 8 o'clock. And this is something you can still do remote. Just check in. Hey, how's everybody doing? What are you working on? One, it helps the whole team know what's going on, so they feel included in everything. Because you can silo in some marketing departments within an organization. It makes them feel included for one, and two, it helps you know, okay, what is everybody working on? And then what can we all do to help? Does anybody need help with anything? And knowing that everybody's there to help pick up slack, or when someone is going through some stuff and you know it, and you've had the conversation, hey, Christy's, she's got a lot on her plate this week. Can we help her with this project? Who's got some capacity that we can shift? Yeah. And creating that safe space, again, promotes creativity beyond. It's that lead by fear I've never understood. And it's like it never works. Your productivity, even though you're killing it, you're still making a ton of money. How much more could you be doing if you actually—
You're also bringing in trust.
Oh, humongous. Yes.
And I mean, it's trusting the company. It's trusting the people you work with. It's trusting who you report to, and feeling that you can be vulnerable. And yes, vulnerability is a strength. However, being vulnerable is being transparent.
Yes.
And very uncomfortable. Exactly.
Yeah. And that magic happens when you're outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely.
And and to be honest, this is public information. I've definitely had those moments in my career.
We all have.
In 2013, I came down with Lyme's disease, and it was something that happened very fast. It was something that I recognized right away at work. I actually recognized the tick that bit me when I was at work. And the fallout from that was interesting in that when my physical health was in decline, obviously mental health comes with that. I was in a tremendous amount of physical pain from the inflammation. I was having migraines, seizures at work, sweating through my black suits because I was having these fevers. And it wasn't until I started healing that one of my good friends, shout out to Michelle at Kaplan, wink, wink, who said to me, as I recovered, she said, Autumn, the Christmas tree lights are back on. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, for the last 3 months, it felt like the lights were off in the building. You were so depressed. You were so different from yourself. Like typically I'm, lifting up the whole group and bouncing on my yoga ball and listening to techno music and having a good time. I grew pumpkins in my office. I had a disco ball. Like it was a party. And all of a sudden it wasn't such a party. It was, I might fall off my disco ball because I'm having a seizure right now. And I just kept quiet about everything because it was not a psychologically safe environment. Had I raised my hand and said, hey, I've got Lyme's disease and it's kicking my butt,
Yeah.
I probably would have been like fired.
Isn't that interesting though, to throw this in there at you? When you are a person of, the positive one, where people go to have fun and that they can talk to, when they see a you go silent or change, people don't know how to deal with that.
Right. They didn't know. And no one talked about it to me because they were scared. Like, this must be something big. Maybe something happened to one of her kids or something.
And they feel, and Kelly and I've talked this on other shows about depression. And when you're always that up person taking care of everybody else, and then all of a sudden you're quiet and you're just like, checked out, they feel that if they ask what's going on, they feel that they have to do something, and they're not going to, they feel, because I've talked to people afterwards, like, well, why didn't you ask? That they're not capable of giving what you want. They don't realize you don't want anything.
Right.
You just want to be there.
I love that you said that. Christy, because a lot of times we don't know what to do when someone's in struggle, right? We're not therapists. We didn't go to school for this.
Yeah.
Christy and I took a certification in mental health first aid. Please, everyone, do that. If you're human, if you talk to other humans, do it, because at some point you'll need it. I think Christy and I both had to use it within the first week we got certified in mental health first aid. So please, everyone, it's important. If you have a heart, if you like the idea of empathy and like to get along with people, mental health first aid is great. So a lot of times we don't know what to say when someone's that deep in struggle. And
but do you think that's part of the problem? Is for
that's what I'm getting to that point. It's like, if you don't know what to say, start with that.
Right. You don't
I don't know what to say to you. Yeah, I don't know what to say to you, Christy, but I've seen that your lights are a little low today and last week a little bit. So let's just go for a walk and see what there is to see. You know, I'm not a therapist, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I have a lot of great resources, and we have our EAP system at work, and we have this and that, and let's go on a bike ride every Sunday. You know, there's so many things we can do. And a lot of times,
I don't know, fly you out to Arizona for a week, for 11 days.
Yeah.
Like, honey,
I'm in.
So like, there's something, you need some other sunshine. Get over it.
Sometimes sunshine helps. I live in Minneapolis.
That's your group of people. You know, that's another thing is surrounding yourself with a core group of people.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I've always done this, and Christy is 100% this way. I've always surrounded myself with people that aren't yes people, and the same in my team hiring. Like, you don't want yes people in your life. You need people to say, girl, you are, I don't know what's happening with you, but you are off your shit. You need to get it together. But that's what we need. And that's why we surround ourselves with that, because we somehow know, like, those are the people I need to help keep me on track.
Yeah.
It's the same thing at work, but you can approach it with it out being exactly, you said, you don't have to say something profound to people. Just, hey, I just noticed that you seemed a little off. How can I support you? What can I do to help you?
Right.
That will do volumes for people. And what it reminds me of always is I lost my dad very tragically when I was young, and people would come up and say the dumbest things. And I was too young to really know, like, other than thinking like, what an idiot or what an ass, or however it would piss me off. And because I was very angry, but people think they need to do something. But what it taught me over time, my lesson out of that is when I've had other people in my life where they've had tragedies occur, I go up to them and say, I have no words. I don't know what to say. Can I give you a hug? What can I do for you? And those have been the ones that have always said to me, like, oh my God, Kelly, that's all I wanted. Because you feel, and especially in a leadership role in the office, a leader feels like they're the ones in charge. Like, I'm not supposed to need help at the pump. Like, I'm supposed to need all of you. So it's hard to reverse that role and have enough introspection to put our ego in check, but also to be able to feel safe and reach out. And if we don't have a safe place in our corporate culture, because I know a lot of them don't, even though they say we've got open door policy and this and that. But
Right.
we all know when we go in,
Exactly.
everything's going to be repeated. So I'm not even going to waste my time.
Right.
But having people outside or peers, I did
Mhm.
have a group of women and other that were in the corporate world that were moving up the ladder. And it was so great to be able to talk to them and say, like, here's what's happening at work. I'm struggling. And how did you, hearing how-to stories, like, how did you get through this? Or the, being the only woman in the boardroom and
Yes.
this is happening, or I'm getting disrespected. How do I deal with it? I don't know. It's important to be active in your own mental health. And when you don't know, it's okay to reach out and go, I don't even know what I need.
Right. Right. That's a big thing. When you're in that overwhelmed, I don't know what I need. I just need it to not be so not be so big right now.
Yeah.
I have one story that oh my goodness, that was probably my first deep dive into intentional culture curation. And it was in 2010, I went to Las Vegas for a
I'm
trade
sorry.
show for
I
work.
love how you guys remember years. I don't even remember what I wore yesterday, or how many years I've lived in Florida, or
Right.
I can't remember years.
I grabbed that stuff. I don't know why or how.
I know.
So I was in Las Vegas, recognizing the culture divide at the organization I was working at, and knowing we need to make a big change. I don't know if I'm high enough on the food chain to help make this change, but I'll do my best. And so at the trade show was one of our senior vice presidents, and I said, "Ooh, I booked something special for you." And he's like, "What, Blue Man Group?" I'm like, "Nope, a little different." And I enrolled us both in the Zappos Culture Boot Camp.
That's amazing.
He was a little disappointed because he was expecting something fun, but it was a fantastic opportunity. And one human being there changed my life and how I view business and our responsibility within business. And not if, but when I have a larger company that I'm in charge of, I will hire someone exactly like her. Her name is Augusta Scott. She is the CEO of Augusta Scott Coaching, Consulting, and Speaking.
Wow.
And she was kind of the holder of sacred space at Zappos. She had a large throne in her office. It was one of the only offices that had walls and privacy. And Augusta's door was always open except for when you had a session. And you would walk in and be like, "Augusta, I want to lose 10 pounds." And she would help you find a way to do that. "Augusta, my dog died. I'm devastated." Augusta would help you find those goals and get toward it. "Augusta, I want to become a VP. I'm tired of being a director." She would book all that stuff in. And you have an accountability coach built into your corporate structure. What? Someone who is so safe, and she's trained in amazing different things. And just having a 10-minute conversation with her in 2010, I was like, I don't know what magic genie bottle she came out of, but I want to have this person in my life, in my role. I want to make sure that someone like this is standing up in every organization I work with for the rest of my life. Like, having that one person you can go to that also kind of holds the space for the culture.
Yes.
That their one job is to be that accountability partner for everyone, whether it was personal or professional.
Yes.
If you want to lose 10 pounds, Augusta's going to help you do it. And she doesn't know how much I love her. I've never wrote her a love letter or how much she's ever changed my life. But as soon as I saw the intentionality and the investment in that culture,
brilliant. And I'm with you.
Absolutely
Every freaking organization should have that. I worked for an organization.
Plugging my phone all over.
We had a corporate coach that came in weekly, and all the executives, we would either have an in-person or an over-the-phone once a week call. We could skip it, but generally we didn't. And then that's how I first got introduced really to corporate culture and coaching is a thing. But it had really always done that, because even in organizations where maybe overall the culture wasn't all that grand, I had a subculture within my own department that was.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I loved it. And I'm like, the brilliance of having someone in your office that's not HR, because let's be honest, HR just has a bad name and people don't trust to go in and tell.
HR is not there. I mean, they're not there for you.
No,
they have a lot of other things.
Yes. And having
they have a lot of other things.
The productivity of how it, it skyrockets because when you have healthy employees, mental health, your productivity will go up immensely because their personal life is part of the work life, period. You can't separate the two. I mean, you can sort of, but not really. You got crap going on, it's coming into the office. So if you
Yes, it is.
and to circle this back around and with job seeking and what's going on now, this is the same thing, people. When people have been out of work for a long time, and we touched on this when we were talking last week, Autumn, is the desperation starts getting in. Like, holy shit, I just need a job. I've got to go in. And when they're interviewing, that desperation, we can smell it a mile away. It reads negative. And this is where I say, you know, the other side, corporate coaching, everybody needs one. Reach out to Autumn and I. And if you're looking for work, you still may need a coach to help you if you are in that place. Be real with yourself.
Yes.
Christy with her confidence coaching, that's exactly what it's for. Help you get your juju back and be prepared for the interviews, etc. Or if you've been out and you don't know, and you know, hey Christy, I'm just giving you a big shout out here. Unplanned, but here we go. Because Christy does free resume and LinkedIn profile reviews for people. That's massive. Like, I don't understand why everybody doesn't do it. Granted, she won't be able to do everyone, but it's a no-brainer. Particularly,
why sleep?
Why? Because, like you said earlier, Autumn, 5 years ago, the job market and job seeking was so different than it is now. If you haven't updated your resume in the last, 3 years, which that used to be a business 101 thing, is always have your resume updated.
Every 6 months.
Yeah, but it's different now, and LinkedIn is very different now. It used to just really be an online business card and or resume, but now it is a social platform for an awful lot of people because it's been the chosen brand.
Your business is B2B. It's if you know anything about it, it's business to business. Always use your LinkedIn as your business page. That's your marketing page. That's communicating who you are, what you do, and what you can bring to the table. Over just, here's my resume, here's my skills, Exactly. Show the personality, because when you go into an interview, they want to see your personality.
And even just to go a step further, this was another thing we hit on last week, and Autumn, I want your thoughts on this, is when you're a marketing person, and I've known many of agencies and people who are marketing leaders, they market everybody. I've marketed everybody my entire career, but not myself. And when it comes to writing, you're about you. It's difficult. It's a struggle because we don't see ourselves the way that our potential client would, our ideal client, or how the world views us. So it's difficult to have that twist. I know many of the successful marketing agencies all over the place, they hire other marketing agencies, fractional, whatever teams to help them create their own brand or do an update or do a rebrand. And that's so important because you are your brand, and reach out to someone and get some help with that, because it is very difficult to see yourself the way that the world does.
It's impossible to see your own light sometimes, And
Unless you're a confidence coach, and I know who I am. But I'm older than both you guys.
Yes, well, with this. So last year I was laid off in October, and I knew it was coming. And they were laying off a lot of people in our organization, most of the people in our organization. And I think that when you get that notification, you're going to go through layers of grief. You're going to go through layers of survival mode thinking, of scarcity thoughts, of who the hell am I anymore? And Christy, being my friend, was able to point out transferable skills that I kind of didn't look at. She was able to point out strengths that I kind of forgot about or wasn't able to see at the point because I was so just in fight or flight shock. And I think it's really important to have and to surround your people. It's our responsibility to surround ourselves with people who see our light when we forget where it is. Right. And that's going to happen in our friend groups. It's going to happen at work. It's going to happen within our family, of like, that's what being a confidence coach is amazing for. One of my favorite friends, who's also a therapist, said to me, when are you going to drop that big bag of crap you've been carrying around for too
Ooh,
long?
love that. Everybody needs one of
Thank
those
you for the tough love. I needed it worded that strong, that direct, no sugarcoating. Drop your junk, man, and figure out your next steps. Oh,
Well, everybody
that's all I
knows.
needed to hear.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it's a very simple statement. I say it daily.
Yeah.
Get out of your head.
Oh, man. Yes.
Because when we're there, we're thinking. So when somebody's interviewing, I have somebody has an interview today, and she's like, "Oh, I hate that question. Tell me about yourself." So I turn around and I've only had a few conversations with her, but I know what her passion is.
Yeah.
So it's like I sort of just worded it as if she was saying it so she could understand, oh my gosh, how easy is it? But when you get those questions in an interview, you're like, I don't know. I mean, I like bacon. I don't know what you want me to say.
That's what you should do, right? Is because people are too worried about what does the recipient want me to say.
And don't.
Right.
Don't.
No, they don't. And I will say, just because this totally reminded me, one of the best interviews I ever had, and the CEO at the time, because it was a long interview process. And he said, so Kelly, tell me about your stuff. Tell me about yourself and start at the beginning. And so I was like,
I was born.
Yeah, I was like, I was born, I was 10 pounds, 1 ounce. Right. And he said, after that first sentence that you said, I already knew I wanted to hire you. Because it wasn't about, I was just being myself. Well, you asked me to start at the beginning. I was born 10 pounds, 1 ounce. Right. And then, of course, that's always a showstopper because, holy crap, you were 10'1"? Yes, I was. I'm 5'1", so,
Shock value. They'll remember you.
Yes.
I typically answer that question well, I was voted most likely to save the world in high school, and I have a lot of work to do.
I love that.
It's like, I'm going to be purpose-driven till the cows come home. I was purpose-driven back then. I'll be purpose-driven till the day I die, and I've got a lot of work to do. And
love it.
I'm ready to roll up my sleeves, find alignment, and make it happen.
Love it.
So both you guys, girls, whatever, y'all. So Kelly, in the marketing realm, what's the industry that you would like to go into and that you're passionate about? I mean, your background is finance and nonprofit, but where do you want to be in the next chapter?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's going to be when I'm so open, there's certain things that I in financial services, being in, Reg D, all of that is so niched, but I dig it because it's constantly changing. Like there's always something to learn. So I love a startup environment. But I also love other things, doing leadership. I mean, anything in leadership and doing corporate coaching, that's part of my passion. And I would love to be able to land in that space, in assist in marketing. But I say I'm an accidental consultant in the marketing space simply because I needed work when I couldn't get a job. And thankfully people had reached out to me. I just truly, Christy, you know me so well. I love helping others. If I can do anything to benefit your business, or your goals in your business or starting your business. Because I think there's a lot of people that are accidental consultants and trying to figure out, how do I solve the problem of not being able to get hired? I'm going to build my dream job. Mentorship and leadership is something that fills my heart with so much joy. And then I geek out on some marketing stuff. So I think it would be a combo of both. But I think in reality, it would be more so in the leadership and mentor coaching space.
What about you, Autumn?
That's a great question. And I'm still a little soul searching on that one. I know what environments I thrive in, and it's definitely fast paced for sure. I'm a high speed, low drag kind of gal. And I know for my next role, I want to be able to lead a team of creatives. I feel like one of my secret sauces is with creatives and leading creatives and neurodiverse people, and just understanding that pattern recognition and thought process behind how they work best and how to get the best work out of people who think
I love that.
That's one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I love everything about marketing and communications. It's wild when people are like, so what do you specialize in? I'm like, I love PR. I love writing emails. I love strategy, of course, strategy and moving things forward and launching a successful product, is just amazing. It's like giving birth, except way less painful typically. Typically.
Wouldn't know.
But coming down to it, I love the B2B environment because that's about building more authentic and deep relationships with people. I can do e-commerce, I can do all those other things, but I think I am someone who appreciates developing long-term relationships with people, getting to know them deeply, and helping them make their job easier. Whether it's an internal customer, my boss, or my team, I want to make your job easier. I want to make you look like a rock star, or it's someone external. Maybe I'm selling my B2B SaaS product to someone in HR, and they need to figure out how to not spend all their time figuring this out. And I can be that shortcut that helps them look great and be able to report out on their outcomes well. And so, for my next adventure, big thing is culture fit, though. I want to make sure that if a company is ready to put their money where their mouth is and hire me to help do some serious transformation, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Amen. That's been part of my thing too, is that at this stage of my career is like, I was tired of working with or for people that did not align morally, ethically with me. And I'm like, I just want to be around some good people and because work is a blast, particularly in the startup environment. And I know not everybody thrives there, but I'm with you. I love the fast pace and the moving. I'm the opposite because I'm someone, if I've got too much time on my hands for something, like if it's slow moving, it's almost like procrastination sneaks in there somewhere because nothing is urgent. And I love the fast pace. And then you don't have so much time to, I have no problem making a decision on a dime.
Sure. Kelle, you mentioned this about the urgency level, and in marketing, especially old style marketing, it was everything's critical. Everything's an emergency. Everything has to happen right now. And that false sense of urgency wears down teams. It's like our adrenal glands cannot handle all this cortisol. Let's really pick our battles. And as a leader within marketing, I think it's also really essential to build out think tanks. Let's have a day where we're not doing the tactical stuff every day. Let's have this one day where we're just going to do a guided meditation and get creative and think about our 2024 and map out some new things we can try from a creative standpoint, a messaging standpoint, value props, all the things. And I think it's up to us to make sure that we're holding creativity sacred, just like we're holding emotional safety and security sacred, because those things go hand in hand. You can't be creative if you're scared.
No,
you can't be creative if you're like, oh, am I going to get laid off next week?
Or I'm afraid to get judged, right? That's the other thing.
Yes.
And what you hit on there is so many things, and I know we can continue to talk forever because there's so much commonality on teams and holding that sacred space. That's so important because it is about mental health of your team. And I'm with you. I love that. There's no greater reward than watching someone who never thought they could accomplish what they did because you nudged them along the way. As a leader, it is our responsibility to highlight what makes someone shine and be like, you're going to shine brighter.
And that's the old school, and that's where you're going to get somebody with lots of experience to be able to get excited and do that.
Right.
And this is the reason why companies need to get over this ageism bullshit.
Yes.
Because you're going to you want to be successful. So bring people in that have the experience, that have the passion.
Yeah.
Who will train who will mentor, who will look outside of the box and say, hey, what do you think about this? And this is where the two of you with the marketing and communication, you're outside of the box thinkers. Yeah. And when you have, and we're going to have a guest who I learned the saying is, a belief system is just a box of bullshit. So when you've got that box of, this is my belief system of how it's supposed to be, or, I have a master's degree, and so this is how the book told me to do. It's a bunch of bullshit. Get rid of the walls and hire people that are old school, people who know the business, know life, and has passion. And I'm sorry, being in that marketing realm, you're never going to get old. I mean, you're just never
You know
going to get
what? It's
old.
not a luxury. It's
No.
it's not a possibility. It's not an option for us. We
No.
have to just
That's right.
keep up. And what's
Yeah.
cool about it is when you really are passionate about it, you want to learn about the next cool platform that gives you these great dashboards and
Absolutely.
the next AI that can build my PowerPoint so I don't spend 3 days doing it. You know, all of that is incredibly exciting. And it's allowing us to kind of farm out and automate things so we can focus on the big things, the strategy, the creativity, the, you know, hugging our coworkers, like all of that stuff is really more important. And I think what's interesting now is, you know, we're now calling them essential skills, but back in my day, they used to call empathy a soft skill, and it's a nice to have. It's a nice to have. Then why is it that we are so afraid to go to our boss and say, I'm struggling with my mental health? Why would I be ashamed of saying that versus I sprained my ankle, I need help?
Right.
Those are two same things. Mental health is health. But why am I so scared to ask for help on this and be judged as crazy versus I have a sprained ankle? I'm open to telling you about that. I've got some frozen peas right now. You know, they're just very different
These
there.
are questions when you
on
see
us to help smooth that out, to level the playing field and be like, we're all human. We are all going to go through some big stuff at some point.
Right.
Yes.
Life, death, divorce, pet dying, you name it. Something's going to happen. You don't get out of this world bruise free,
No.
injury free. And that's part of the beauty of it. And I just heard about this term maybe 3 years ago from Dr. 𝑨𝒘𝒆𝒏𝒆𝒚, and he told me about PTSD. We can talk all day about PTSD. We know what it is, post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is post-traumatic stress growth, which is about 80% of what happens after a trauma, if you're doing it right. If you're feeling your feelings, if you're grieving the right way, you're doing all the things that you need to support your growth in that space, you're going to take that rock bottom and push off from the ground. And I think we don't give enough credit to those stories in our lives. Like, my divorce, here's what I learned. And then you can offer those nuggets of truth or compassion or empathy to people who are now going through said divorce on your team or within your organization.
Well, I know that we've gone over, as you should.
I'm not shocked. Not shocked.
Not at all.
I do want to just make a point that when you see a job description and they actually have, you know, certain words, you know, mental health, empathy and everything, ask those questions in the interview while you're interviewing them.
Yes.
How do you work with your empathy?
Yeah.
How do you work with your mental health?
Right.
You know, is it just business? So it's going back to the job seekers that you guys have to own these interviews.
That's right.
Yeah.
So with that, it's up to you, Kelly. We got to.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. And
I
know.
I totally agree on, I mean, there's so many different things, and getting into culture is a whole another episode.
Yes.
Such a fun conversation for so many reasons, but a truly deep conversation that I know impacts so many people. And just sort of to finalize and piggyback on what you just said, Christy, is owning the interview. Like, you're not a victim there being questioned, own it. But that's part of confidence. So if you do need help with that, again, you need to contact Christy. But it's knowing too if the culture is good for you. And this is a little bonus tip, which I find super fascinating. And I can't remember the first statistic part, but if you ask a business owner, how important is culture to you? And they always say, oh, it's in the top 3, like, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what is your budget line item for that?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Don't you have a line item for that? What do you do?
Ping pong table and pizza parties?
Yeah, exactly. So the painted words on your lunchroom wall,
Right.
like you have to be purposeful of what culture you have to foster it. It doesnthen just happen by itself because you said it exists in your interview. So I just thought that was super interesting with all these big organizations, and then none of them had a line item for it. And it's like, so you don't have a budget for it, which is just interesting.
Right.
But you know, you guys, this was so good. And for anyone out there who is struggling with work, we are always praying for you and here for you. If you're not sure how to reach out to someone, you know, reach out to us. I mean, we're not here because we're trying to be private. Do connect.
We dance with our skeletons.
Yes, we do. We do. But connect with Autumn. She's got rad content, and as you can see, she's just super fun. And man, she's just an inspiring, motivational, you know, beacon of hope. And we're so grateful to have had you with us here today, Autumn. And to everyone as we tune in.
I'm looking at that real quickly. I still have a disco ball in my office.
There you go.
You're just totally rad. But as we go into this Thanksgiving week, we wish everyone here in the States a happy Thanksgiving. We're grateful for every single one of you. And please do join us next Tuesday at 1:11 p.m. Eastern time, because we are all here on this journey, and together we do make it awesome. Have a great day, everyone.